This is our second tutorial on Google Spreadsheets, and in this one we're actually going to work with a scatter plot of data. So we now have a new tab here at the bottom of our little experiment sheet, and I've got some data for diameter and circumference, and what we're going to do is we're going to plot this so that we look at the diameter as our independent variable and circumference as our dependent variable. So we're going to calculate pi. The first thing we want to do is we want to look at our data and see if it looks like it's going to fit into a linear model. So let's go ahead and create that chart. So I'm going to do an insert a chart, and then I'm going to select my data. And in this time, I'm going to select my data. I'm going to carefully select it so that I get the X data first. So I'm just going to make sure that my X data gets selected first. That's my diameters. Okay, and then I'm going to add another range. And this time it's going to be my Y data. So my X versus my Y. And I want to make sure that they match in size. So in other words, A1 to A6 and B1 to B6. And now I can say OK. Now this time it doesn't necessarily look like it wants to select a chart for me. So I'm going to click on Charts. And then I'm going to go down to the Scatter chart. And then click on the one with the dots. And there's what my data looks like. So you can see that it is a nice scattered chart. It is looking like it's going to be fairly linear. So let's go ahead and title this one up. So this one is going to be diameter or circumference versus diameter. And I'm going to skip having a legend in this because I only have one set of data. And then I'm going to go to my horizontal axis, which is my diameter, measured, of course, in centimeters. And now we're going to toggle down to our vertical one. The vertical axis is going to be the circumference, measured again in centimeters. And at that point, it looks like I'm good to go. I'm going to go ahead and say insert on this one. And I've got my graph now. And I'm going to just drag my graph up. This time I'm going to leave it here so that I can look at it as I'm working. So we'll just bring it up there. Okay, so now I can kind of look at where I'm at here. I do know that this is going to produce a slope, and what I'm looking for on the slope on this one is actually the value of pi. So I'm going to calculate the line of best fit for this graph. To do that, I'm going to go where I typed slope and intercept, and I'm going to go to the cell right below there. And there's a function that's built into spreadsheets that's a line of best fit or a linear regression. And I'm going to press the equal sign. To get to that linear regression formula, I'm just going to start typing linest. Okay, and you can see that it already pops up there that it's looking for the best fit linear trend. Okay, and so now I have some syntax that I have to do, and if you look here, it does say put the Y data first, then the X data second, and then it'll calculate the B, or if I put in a 0, it'll actually go straight to going through the origin. So I'm going to leave it that way. So I'm going to go ahead and say, all right, let's do this. So linest, and then we want to make sure that we're bringing in our Y values first. Okay, we're going to separate with a comma our X values. And now we'll go ahead and we'll close that off and hit enter and see what it says. So it's giving me a line of best fit. So it's telling me that the slope of my line is about 3.216. Okay, I'm just going to do a quick little format of these and get these down to more reasonable number values. So let's just give them 2 decimal places. And you can see that I'm not quite going through the origin, which means that my slope is off a little bit. But that's why it's data. So this was all made off of measurements. If I wanted to, I could calculate each trial. And to do that, I'm going to do a similar thing, but I'm just going to calculate each trial. My formula for that is just going to be my circumference divided by my diameter. So I'm just going to take my circumference and divide it by my diameter. and then I can just fill that in all the way down too. So I'm dragging that blue square down, and then I need to be able to just look at it quickly, and you see my data is pretty decent data, so I don't have a lot of variation from it, from my slope, and my slope really represents the average of it. All right, so now let's go ahead, and what we'll do next is we'll do a quick little percentage error to see how far off were we from the actual value of pi, which is 3.14. So I'm going to start by doing this. Whenever I do a percentage error, I always like to make it an absolute error. So I'm going to use a function called absolute, which will give me the absolute value of my numbers. I'm going to take my value that I have here for pi from my experiment minus the actual value, which is 3.14. And then I'm going to divide that by the 3.14. And it gives me that as a number. Again, I'm going to format that into a percentage, and then I'll drag that down, and we'll be able to see how close I was on my percentages. So hopefully that kind of showed you a couple of quick things with Google Docs, or with Google Spreadsheets again. So we made a scatter plot, and we did some formulas on this one. And you can join me in the next one when we actually look at another tool in Spreadsheets, which is using forms.